So this morning I talked a little bit about GTA Plus, which is this subscription service that is going to be going live this week for Grand Theft Auto Online, which is like basically attached to GTA 5 since that came out back in 2013. And I started to think about something, and well, it kind of comes down to Rockstar and how much they've changed since the GTA 5 release, and how a lot of newer gamers are just completely unaware as to what Rockstar used to do nearly 20 years ago. We're going to talk a little bit about that here today. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave Plus channel, make sure you subscribe down below. So something that people have mentioned a lot for years now is that Grand Theft Auto 5 basically ruined things for Rockstar. I mean, not like financially. Obviously, they make a lot of money from that game, but it made it so that they didn't really have to make games like they used to. Let me show you what I mean. Here's a chart that, well, it hasn't really needed to be updated much at all. Like, this is the Rockstar Games release timeline. And it's interesting to look at now, especially if you were around during like the PS2, the GameCube, or the Xbox era. I mean, Rockstar was just pumping out game after game after game. And ever since GTA 5 came out, they've really only done one full release, and that's Red Dead Redemption 2. That wasn't typical of them. I mean, look at this. We could go all the way back to the late 90s, like Grand Theft Auto, obviously, that releasing on the PlayStation 1 at the time. But then they did some weird stuff like Thrasher, which is a skateboarding game, Wild Metal Surfing, H3O, Smuggler's Run, which was a pretty cool game, actually, back then. I remember playing Smuggler's Run on a PS2 at my friend's house, and then Smuggler's Run 2 came out, right? That was actually like the following year, and that's something you're going to see here with Rockstar, is they would put a game out, and then like a year and a half later, they would have a sequel out to that game, and that also includes Grand Theft Auto. I mean, if you look like between 2001 and 2002, they had Grand Theft Auto 3, Oni, Max Payne, and the Italian Job all releasing. Yes, next Smuggler's Run 2, but like those were 4 big titles that they released at the time. I remember there's a lot of advertising actually around the Italian Job, a lot of posters in some of these big stores. But like Grand Theft Auto 3 was massive for them, right? And it's really funny the history of that one, since Microsoft could have actually had that as an exclusive for the original Xbox, at least a timed exclusive. Eventually went to the Xbox, but I mean, that really set things in motion for Sony with their PlayStation 2. But then look, like a year and a half later, Vice City came out, and I'm sure Rockstar already had a lot of stuff built out because of GTA 3, but like one year we get a big Grand Theft Auto game, the next year we get another one, and then you move up to 2003, they had Midnight Club 2, Max Payne 2, Manhunt, then the following year, Red Dead Revolver, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, then even Grand Theft Auto Advanced for like the GBA, and we got the Warriors, Midnight Club 3. Like I said, it was game after game after game, and they still continue to do some of these weird titles. Bully, for example, sure, it's still kind of like a Grand Theft Auto style game, but it was a different idea for them to pursue. And even like table tennis. Like, who would have been sitting in 04 when San Andreas came out, and they're like, wow, next thing Rockstar is going to do is some sort of table tennis game. Well, they did, and it was an interesting game, I guess, at the time. It visually, it was pretty impressive on the 360. I at least remember that. Manhunt 2, Midnight Club LA, which is the last Midnight Club that we had. That was 2008. It's been so long. It's like 14 years since a Midnight Club released. That's a shame. That game is backwards compatible, though, on the Xbox, so there's at least that, I guess. We had Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars, then we had Red Dead Redemption along with Undead Nightmare, but then you can kind of see the releases slowing down a bit. We had LA Noire, which was an interesting idea with kind of the facial animations, try to see if people were lying and everything there. Max Payne 3, which still holds up, by the way, to this day. Like, if you play that now on your PC or even on, like, your Xbox, because it's backwards compatible, it's still a phenomenal game to play through. Then we got GTA 5, and you'll notice something immediately. I mean, that was kind of it for a long time. I mean, Red Dead Redemption 2 came out between 18 and 19, but, like, that is a long stretch for there to be no releases. And at this point, I can basically say, tell me when Rockstar discovered microtransactions, because there were actually quite a few things that were released there. They just weren't full-fledged game releases. See, when you fill in those spots with content that was released for Grand Theft Auto Online, there's actually quite a few releases for like new heists, new content, new parts of the world, and all of this. I mean, they really focused in on GTA Online. And some of that had to do, I'm sure, with GTA 5 just selling like 20 million copies every year, like without fail, but also GTA Online being very lucrative when it came to the microtransactions, the shark cards, and all of this. Now, that did also afford them the ability to basically take years and years and years to create a very polished product with Red Dead Redemption 2, but that also means we're getting to the point where games are just not coming out as frequently from Rockstar, nowhere near what they were putting out back in the early 2000s. Now, I do think some of that has to do with the overall production value and the expectation on Rockstar currently being super high, but I feel like there's still a place for them to do smaller releases. We had the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy Remastered come out, but they like had another company come in and work with them on that, and that was, again, a whole thing when that one released. Wasn't the quality that we expect from Rockstar. So to me, that's kind of out the window now. I wouldn't mind them to do some smaller releases. I don't know if they're going to go off and do another Warriors game because that was licensing and all of this, but like another Midnight Club, that'd be kind of cool. Another Manhunt, especially in today's climate, that'd be real interesting. Take another shot at a skateboarding game, new Oni, an Italian Job. I think a new Max Payne could be a very enjoyable linear experience, and they don't need to build out a Grand Theft Auto style open world where everything's like way more detailed than it needs to be, and there's like all these little Easter eggs and stuff in there. Max Payne, I think, is one that would work out pretty well there, but that's kind of where we are with Rockstar now. And then we see GTA Plus, which is a subscription that I believe they're trying to set up, experiment with, and work out some of the kinks as they head into the next Grand Theft Auto Online that releases. Grand Theft Auto 6, I'm sure, is going to be this amazing event when it finally gets announced. And like I said, finally gets announced. It's probably going to be like I would say 2024 is my estimation as to when it actually gets announced. And it might end up coming out in like 2025, which would be about a 12-year gap between Grand Theft Autos. Well, unless you count Grand Theft Auto Online, in which case they're just releasing games left and right there. But let me know what you guys think about this, especially if you remember Rockstar back during the PS2 and the Xbox and the GameCube days and how they were releasing stuff left and right, center, all over the place, and kind of where they are now. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.